we'll get to the news for this week. And the way I'm gonna do it is I'm going to ask Copilot the same question that we always ask each week for this. So, show me the top UK news stories from the past 7 days. Oh, the weather's up there. Crime and justice is up there. Health and social issues, economy and public finances, culture and human interest. Okay, we won't go straight to the summary. We'll start at the top. So they want you to focus on the weather. Storm Bram lashes the UK. 90-mile-per-hour winds, heavy rain and flooding left thousands without power. I can believe that. It blew a hoolie last night, and effectively, well, not last night, it was Tuesday night. It blew a hoolie. It effectively rattled my gate open. It was that fierce. Met Office warning, yellow alerts issued for rain and wind, with some areas seeing half a month's rainfall in 24 hours. So that's our weather and environment. Crime and justice. Steak knife IRA spy report. A long-awaited inquiry revealed Britain's top spy inside the IRA committed the worst possible crime. So, old news, as it's a long-awaited inquiry. Heathrow pepper spray attack. 2 men charged with robbery and administering a noxious substance after an incident at the airport. Southampton student murder. An 18-year-old university student was fatally stabbed. Multiple arrests have been made. Surrey pub death probe. Police launched a murder investigation after a man was found dead in an alley. Okay. Health and social issues. Maternity care scandal. A review condemned unacceptable care in UK maternity services, sparking calls for reform. Well, I brought to you a couple of weeks ago the hospital inquiry into Leeds Hospital. That's another research piece that has been or will be going up on the Research Hub in YouTube. So watch out for that. That will probably be in about 3 weeks. So I look into the investigation they're doing into the Leeds Hospital case and the 14 hospital trusts and teaching hospitals that are under review. This may well be an addition to that. So I will look into that. And if needs be, I will update you. But you'll know more about that when the YouTube goes up. The Research Hub YouTube goes up. Mutant flu outbreak, not another one. A major hospital declared a critical incident as staff struggled with rising cases. Does that sound familiar? Bearing in mind, this is what they want you to look at. Motor neurone disease drug denial. Teenager Lilia Jakeman was refused access to a so-called miracle drug, raising ethical questions. Interesting. Economy and public finances. COVID fraud revealed. Government schemes during this pandemic led to, 11 billion in fraud and error. I will definitely look into that because we're covering the COVID inquiry, the public inquiry. Energy bill hikes backlash. Households expressed anger at rising costs despite falling wholesale prices. I missed one out. Sorry. I'll go back to that. Well, it's right. When you look at the amount of money that the energy people have, they're right to be angry, expressed anger. It's a very nice way to put it. I'd be bloody livid. So the one I missed out, Christmas dinner costs. Prices for turkeys and festive staples have fallen, making holiday meals cheaper. I wonder if that's like the same in America, where they said, was it Mr. Trump basically turned around and said that the Walmart's offering for Christmas was however many dollars cheaper than it was last year, much cheaper than it's ever been. But when it was looked into by alternative media, the cost was cheaper. However, the items had been reduced, I think, by about 15 items weren't even in there. And the items that were in there that were classed as staples for Christmas dinner were all cheap varieties. So Walmart may well have dropped the price, but they've effectively dropped the size and the quality to reflect that price. It's a bit like in the UK, we've noticed that there are certain things in our supermarkets, like cat food, for example. Cat food, I used to buy cat food for my cat, Felix, and not the cat's Felix. I used to buy Felix cat food. And I noticed that the price of Felix had gone up. I used to buy a 40 box. The price of Felix had gone up. And when I opened up the 40 box, that was a lot more expensive. They'd reduced the 100-gram pack size to 80 grams. So not only had they put the price up, they'd reduced the size of the packets within the box. So, yeah, same kind of thing. So it wouldn't surprise me if this Christmas dinner cost coming down is not because you're getting better stuff for less price or the same stuff for less price. It will be less value for a less price. I think we're stupid. Culture and human interest. 125 million Euro Millions jackpot. A UK winner claimed one of the biggest lottery prizes in history. So that's just to tell you that some people can win. Nativity mix-up. A boy accidentally dressed as Elvis instead of an elf for his school play. And it's going viral. Yorkshire town named happiest. A survey crowned a Yorkshire market town the happiest place to live in the UK. So there you go. So what we're being told to look at is look at the weather. Brits love to complain about the weather. Crime and justice, old stuff that we're gonna bring to your eyes for now. Health and social issues, the maternity care scandal, yes, very important and something I will definitely look into. The COVID fraud revealed, dinner costs. So, okay. So what I decided, after having asked Copilot that, I then thought we'd take a punt at this. So show me the top UK stories for the past 7 days. Exclude mainstream media. So this should now bring up alternative media, as non-mainstream media has been called. Extremist. Extremist, the conspiracy theorists. So let's see how much it differs. I'm not sure if it will. It may well not. And if it doesn't, way brilliant for Copilot. If it does, then we're on to something. Here's a roundup of the most discussed UK stories from the past week, drawn from independent and alternative outlets rather than mainstream media. These highlight grassroots reporting, critical analysis, and perspectives often overlooked by larger broadcasters. Okay, so the very first thing that comes up: housing crisis and collapsing safety net. Ooh. So, not mentioned the weather, not yet. Give them a chance. I don't know if Copilot's a male. I suppose it could be male or female. It's your Copilot. So, okay. So, True Publica reported on Britain's housing safety net eroding with rising homelessness and inadequate government response. So from an alternative media point of view, that's something that the DMSA would not want you to be looking at. Assisting dying bill debate. Now, I knew about this and I've been looking into it, and it's another area of research that I will bring to you on one of our Wednesday evenings. At the moment, it's come through various parts of the government, and I think it's sitting with the House of Lords at the moment. I could be wrong, don't quote me. Independent Voices explored the philosophical and ethical case for assisted dying legislation currently under discussion in Parliament. So I will bring my research to you on that because I think it's a very important topic. Climate crisis urgency. Oh dear. Coverage emphasised the UN's warning that humanity is torching the planet and paying the price, with UK activists pressing for stronger climate policies. There's a lot of different narratives surrounding the climate crisis. I have someone that I will introduce to you at a later date, who I find very compelling and greatly interesting when it comes to watching their content. I will introduce you to them, and they can tell you an awful lot about the climate crisis. Okay, maybe not such a crisis. The budget fallout. Alternative economic analysts critiqued market overreactions to the Chancellor's budget, highlighting inequality and austerity concerns. Yep. Wait for the 2-child cap video. That's coming. That will be next week because I look into that about the budget. UK's role in global arms transfers. Reports noted a coalition of 54 countries urging the UN to halt arms transfers to Israel, with UK policy under scrutiny. We won't see any of that in our mainstream media, will we? That's sensitive information that the DSMA believe we don't need to know. We don't need to know about that. The fact that 54 countries are urging the UN to halve arms. I think they should stop arms to Israel completely. Collapse of Western idealism. Essays argued that UK politics reflects a broader decline in Western democratic ideals, linking to populism and disillusionment. Oh. I think 100% there's been a massive decline in ideals when it's linked to populism and we're all disillusioned. We all feel disillusioned, and having found out about the DSMA, I can't even begin to tell you how I feel about it. It's a confirmation of what I always thought. And when you think something not so great is happening, to have confirmation of that, it's just, it's like, I knew it was going on, but if you don't stick it in front of my nose, we can ignore it a little bit. But that's really, it's part of not ignoring your gut when you know something's not right. So interestingly, look, the last one, sorry, I nearly missed one out. Impact of social media misinformation. There we have it. Independent outlets examined how online platforms are shaping a misled society, with UK specific examples of censorship and disinformation. So we finally got to the DSMA. Doesn't mention the DSMA, doesn't call it by name, but has couched it within an acceptable format that it believes we can have. Impact of social media misinformation. Okay, so Copilot can shove it. But the bottom line is, when I asked them to exclude this, which is what mainstream would like you to see, all of this, it actually comes up with things that are really quite important that we really should be looking at. So from now on the News Hub, I'm not going to bother with mainstream media. Whenever I do my searching, I will be asking that question, exclude mainstream media at the end of that question. So yeah, we'll have a truer representation, I believe, of what the actual news is, and we can avoid the censorship on the mainstream media completely, avoid it like the plague. And now we have confirmation of why to avoid it. We know that it's a narrative that's being fed to us. So there are a few things that I'm already investigating. Like there are things that I'm already looking at. So we know I'm looking at the assisted dying bill. I'm glad that that has been brought up. I'm looking at the budget fallout about inequality and austerity concerns. I've already done a video about that, and we'll look into what that's mentioning. It's from True Publica. So I will explore that further. I mean, the arms thing, it doesn't surprise me that we're not being shown that. The collapse of Western idealism. And as you know, I've already covered the social media misinformation. So that was Copilot for this week. So I'm not even going to... Oh, Sarah, happy returns. Sarah returns. So I'm not going to ask Claude about mainstream media. I'm just asking Claude, and from now on, we'll just ask all the AIs to exclude the mainstream media. So let's see what Claude has to say, bearing in mind that Microsoft own Copilot, and even when it's looking at alternative media, the extremist, it will still couch it in a way that is palatable for the puppeteers. Claude, maybe not so. So we'll see what Claude returns. As always, you can look at what Claude's looking at. So he's looking at independent media. So if you want to know what independent media places to go and get information from in the UK, these would be it. The iPaper, that's Wikipedia. Revenue for independent tops 50 million for the first time. So that's the Press Gazette. True Publica, we've got that. Wiki again. Journalism.co.uk. Okay, so they're the alternative medias. Says specifically for the UK. Oh wow, it's gone really in depth. Okay, so this is what Claude has to say about last week's media. Based on my searches, I can see that finding very recent news stories from UK independent media outlets that explicitly exclude mainstream sources is challenging, because many of these outlets focus on longer form investigations or have specific coverage areas. Let me provide you with what I've found. So it's longer form, it's not punchy headlines. Top UK independent media news stories this past week. Open democracy. Electoral reform push. Analysis highlighting that the UK's first past the post voting system is holding back democracy, with Reform UK polling at 30% but having only 5 seats, demonstrating systemic issues. Okay. Military analysis. Articles examining 25 years of failed wars and militaristic foreign policy approaches. Definitely wouldn't have that on mainstream media. Wow. Novara Media. GB News investigation. Major report showing GB News mentioned Muslims or Islam over 17,000 times between October 2022 to September 2024, accounting for nearly half of all such mentions across UK TV news. I used to watch GB News. I used to just catch it every now and again, mainly because I love Neil Oliver. And he is, or was, I don't know if he still is, I presume he still is, was one of the newscasters. He had his own segment, he had his own slot. And that's kind of how I came to follow him on YouTube. Very interesting man and really passionate about what he believes in. But I stopped watching GB News because of the propaganda that they were pushing out at me, and I just felt uncomfortable with it. So I unsubscribed. I didn't watch them. Ed Miliband's net zero plans, coverage of the government's energy decarbonisation strategy announced December the 13th. Okay. Disability rights. Feature on disability activist Ellen Clifford's legal challenge against the UK government over benefit cuts affecting 457,000 claimants. Wouldn't get that on mainstream. National Health Service doctors are under pressure. Investigation into how pro-Israel pressure groups and social media sanctions are making National Health Service doctors' professional lives untenable. That's something I will look into. That's our doctors. Bureau of Investigative Journalism. British Journalism Awards won multiple awards, including Energy and Environment Journalism. That's Josephine Moulds for investigations into HSBC, Barclays and fossil fuel financing, and sports journalism. Many UK independent outlets like the Bristol Cable, Tortoise Media and others focus on longer investigative pieces rather than daily breaking news, which is why finding stories from exactly the past 7 days is limited. These outlets often publish weekly or even when major investigations are complete, rather than following the 24-hour news cycle of mainstream media. So Claude felt quite confined. So that's alternative from Claude, and interestingly, covering different topics compared to Copilot. So is there anything really that we need to take a look into when it comes to Claude? I'm not going to shut any of them down because I keep them, I bookmark them, and then after we finished chatting, I go back, and if there's anything that I am going to investigate, then I start from there and I work my way out. And that's what you'll see on the research days on a Wednesday. Okay. And now we'll introduce you again to Grok. I didn't put much stock in Grok. I'd heard about it. I'd never used it. But when it came to the DSMA stuff and asking Grok compared to Claude and Microsoft, it's like taking a step from Copilot being very, this is exactly what you should be looking at. Claude going by, well, this is what's happening, but it's subjective. We can look at it and we can expand it a little bit more. To Grok, who just does not give a shit. Tells you how it is. straight. So I'm really liking Grok. And it might be that during a news hub, we end up just working with Grok, depending on how the other two perform. But I do find it interesting, the comparisons. Okay, so let's ask Grok exactly the same question and see what he comes up with. Again, don't know if it's a he. Could be a he, could be a she. Okay, here we go. Based on discussions, posts and reports from independent voices on X, Reddit, and niche outlets like Guido Fawkes and Nation Cymru. Here are the most prominent UK news stories from the past week. Oh, I say, Grok tells you exactly as it is. Afghan asylum seekers jailed for raping 15-year-old girl in Warwickshire. Now, we didn't get that on Claude, and we certainly didn't get that on Copilot. Wow. So, 2 Afghan nationals who arrived via small boats were sentenced to prison for the brutal rape of a teenage girl. The defence cited cultural differences in a society where women are seen as equal, sparking outrage over immigration policies and integration failures. So why it trended? Reform UK's Zia Yusuf called it evidence of Britain being invaded, with 100% of GB News viewers in a poll demanding a national emergency on small boat crossings. Independent commentators like Matt Goodwin highlighted it as part of a pattern of migrant-related crimes, including heroin importation and gang activity. When it comes to immigration, my very first question, because as confined as we found out we are in our mainstream media, here in the UK, we do have a general standard of governance-ish and living that is acceptable, and it's something that I'm quite happy that I live in this country. I'm increasingly day by day less happy, but I still relatively remain happy about living in this country. So the very first question when it comes to a migrant is, why would they leave their own country? That's my first question. And it would be my first question to anybody who has anything to say about people coming to this country. Why would they be leaving their own? Because in their own country, that's their homestead, that's their heritage, that's where they come from. That's their base, that's their livelihood, that's everything that they know. And they're upping sticks and traveling to a different country. And it doesn't just have to be the UK. I'm talking about any country. You have to question why they would choose to leave their country. And the answers invariably involve the fact that there is some sort of discord happening in their country. And when you chase the rabbit hole of who is responsible for the discord, it leads back to the puppeteers. It leads back to governing people in this world that believe that a country should have a different prime minister or should have a different politician heading it. And that politician should be in line with the global puppeteers. That government has to be in line with all the other puppets. And the puppeticians have to be played by the same puppeteer. And when they're not, and when they won't, they have regime changes and wars. And the people that live in those countries, who I would hazard a guess really don't want to have to leave their own countries, are having to leave and come to other countries in order to live, especially if there's a war going on. Who knows whether they have any quality of life in the country that they're fleeing from? But that's my first question when it comes to migration. Why are they leaving their country, and who is involved in the politics in their country that is chasing them out and forcing them to leave? Definitely something worth thinking about. Okay, so that was number one. Grok. Wow. Advance UK registers as official political party. Ben Habib, former Reform UK deputy, launched Advance UK as a registered party, positioning it as a real alternative to focus on borders, sovereignty, and national identity. It aims to challenge the decline under Labour and Conservatives. Well, if they're not willing to become puppeticians, it won't go very far. Why it trended? Seen as a splinter from Reform UK and internal tensions, with supporters raising its anti-globalist stance. Ex-users like Jim Ferguson called it momentous for organised opposition. There you go. Not mentioned on Claude, not mentioned on Copilot. Okay, neither was this. UK launches Atlantic Bastion to counter Russian underwater threats. Did you know about that? That may well have been in the news, something to do with Russia. A new hybrid naval force was unveiled to protect undersea cables from Russian sabotage amid reports of increased Moscow activity in the Atlantic. That's rich. Considering the West blew up their pipeline, it's a bit like the pot calling the kettle black, don't you think? Why it trended. Military-focused accounts like the BFBS Forces News and Royal Navy highlighted it as a direct response to hybrid warfare. Independent X discussions tied it to broader NATO tensions and Trump's potential Ukraine pivot. Evidently, Trump is thinking of pivoting on Ukraine. We should get out of Ukraine. Outrage over Pakistani cousin marriages and birth defects in Bradford. A viral report claimed 76% of Pakistanis in Bradford marry first cousins, linking it to 33% of UK birth defects, despite being 3% of the population, burdened the National Health Service due to cultural norms rooted in Islamic practices. Okay. Why it trended. HUB News post exploded with 21,000 plus likes, fueling debates on multiculturalism and healthcare costs. Critics on X called for policy changes, while others decried it as inflammatory. Oh, Sadiq Khan quotes Quran at Trafalgar Square event, sparking backward claims. Dear. London Mayor Sadiq Khan referenced Quranic verses on nations and tribes during a public event, prompting accusations from patriots that the UK is regressing 1,400 years under multicultural policies. Again, HGB News video garnered 88,000 views, with users like Danielle Proto labelling it as part of Shiite Britain, tied to broader Islamophobia debates on X. Controversy over Liverpool-Hull rail link labelled England and Wales product. A multi-billion rail scheme was reclassified by the UK government as an England and Wales initiative, excluding Scotland and Northern Ireland, igniting devolution rows. Oh dear. HMS Lancaster is decommissioned after 34 years of service. Wow. The Royal Navy's longest-serving frigate, dubbed the Queen's Frigate, was decommissioned in Bahrain after 800,000 plus nautical miles and 11 years at sea. Wow. If that tub could talk, it would probably be censored by DSMA. It probably has spoken, and DSMA would not allow it to come through. Protesters throw custard at Crown Jewels in anti-monarchy stunt. Okay, and I'm loving this. This alternative media is definitely the way to go, definitely. Because we know if there's a really big story that's going to affect everyone, it will be covered in alternative media as well as mainstream. It's just with alternative media, you get a much more realistic understanding of exactly what's happening. in the UK rather than the contrived version. So, activists from Take Back Power held crumble and custard at the Tower of London's Crown Jewels display, protesting royal wealth and cost of living woes. I'm not even going to begin to go into what I think about our monarchy. Everybody has their own opinion on our monarchy, like the institution. We can go over that. Let me know if you want me to tell you about what I think about the monarchy. And we can explore that. We can research that. But it's a matter of opinion when it comes to the monarchy. But I will say I'm not a royalist. Calls for national emergency on small boat migrant crisis intensify. Okay, polls showed overwhelming public support, 100% in one GB News survey. Now, we've already heard about GB News being a bit iffy for declaring a migrant emergency tied to crimes like the Warwickshire rape and the 563 million plus spent on Afghan resettlement, mostly adult males. And the reason we have Afghans coming into our country is because of our involvement in the Afghan war. Why it trended. Okay. Trump's MAGA influence sparks fears of far-right push in the UK and Europe. Jonathan Pye. If you've never heard of Jonathan Pye, look him up. Fascinating man. Very funny, very good at what he does. And his coverage of the news is second to none. It is extraordinarily good. Jonathan Pye and the news agents warned of US-style imperial expansion into UK politics via far-right patriotic parties amid Trump's Ukraine moves. Okay, and that's it. That's it from Grok. These stories highlight themes like immigration, national security, and political fragmentation domineering non-mainstream discourse. Engagement metrics from X drove selections showing public pulse over editorial picks. For deeper dives, check linked posts or Reddit threads. So I've got all the links there. I'm not so sure if there's stuff that I need to explore from a research point of view, but that just goes to show you how very different the media is portrayed across just those three AIs. Like what Copilot told us was completely different to what Claude informed us of. What Claude informed us of was completely different to what Grok brought up. So from that perspective, for next week, we will be going through the three media outlets again, alternative media outlets again, just so that we can have a comparison, so we can have a look and we can get a broader view of what's going on in the world.